وأصحابه ومن والاه رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة نبيه والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه وما نوى به السلف الصالح أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, everybody's doing well. Yesterday we talked about the ayat regarding Tafsir. We began Surah Mutaffifeen. We explained what the surah was about. We explained this word called Tafsir, the graveness of it. We explained what is the meaning of Tafsir, what constitutes Tafsir, and how it is not restricted only to monetary transactions, but it is a broader word used for the sin of not fulfilling someone's rights or not giving someone his due right. We talked about the punishments, and we also talked about what we should do regarding it. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in continuing on in Surah Mutaffifeen, the topic now will continue into the discussion of Jannah and Jahannam and the denizens therein. As we mentioned, the majority of the ulama take this surah to mean, or take the surah to be a Makki surah. As such, the da'wah therein we can see is once again directed at the Muslims and the non-Muslims, as we've seen in the previous surahs. The discussion of the fujjar, the actions of the fujjar, the place where the fujjar will be sent. These things will be discussed, as well as those who fulfill the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This will also be discussed, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will finish the surah. We may not reach to the people of Jannah today because there is a discussion that needs to be had with regards to the people of Fujjar, but inshallah, as much as we can do today, we will. As we mentioned before, in Surah Al-Infitar, there is similar wordings, and we said that it is discussed briefly there, and it will be discussed fully here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كلا إن كتاب الفجار لفي سجين وما أدراك ما سجين كتاب مرقوم ويل يومئذ للمكذبين الذين يكذبون بيوم الدين وما يكذب به إلا كل معتد أثيم إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون ثم إنهم لصال الجحيم ثم يقال هذا الذي كنتم به تكذبون. This will be the ayat that we will discuss first. All of these ayat are pertaining to the fujjar, the transgressors, those who transgress against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of these verses can apply to both Muslim and non-Muslim. Some of these verses are restricted only to the non-Muslims, and we will discuss that inshallah according to the explanations of Imam Shafi'i and Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi. As we said yesterday, that these ayat are connected to the discussion of yesterday. Yesterday we discussed how the sin of tasfif, of holding back a person's rights, and we said towards the end that a person in this world, he may get away with it. Maybe, because of his position, maybe because he's very cunning, he gets away with cheating other people, not giving other people his rights. But in the next life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is highlighting here that that this sin will be held accountable, and the documentation of this sin is discussed here. In the previous ayahs which we read yesterday, we will read the translation once again, just so that we can get a refresher of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned of a sin, warned of the graveness of the sin, and thereafter said, implying that do not think you can get away with this. Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do they not think that they will not be raised up on that great day when all the people will stand before the Lord of the worlds? Nay, but rather indeed the book of deeds of the sinners is in Sijjeen. We will discuss that soon. And what do you know about Sijjeen? It is a register which is inscribed, and woe be and destruction be on that day to the deniers, those who denied the day of judgment. And nobody denies it except those who are extremely sinful, when our verses are recited to such a person, he says these are tales of the ancient people. We don't believe in this. These are fairy tales. But rather, that which they used to commit has covered their hearts with rust. Rather, indeed, they will be screened off from their Rabb on that day. Then they will have to enter Jahannam. Then it will be said that this is what you used to deny. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained the sin, and then he says, do the people who do this sin of not fulfilling the rights of others, of not giving people their due rights, do they believe that they will not be resurrected? Do they think they can get away with this? Do they think that they will not be raised in front of their Rabb on that day where all of humanity will stand before their Rabb and the Lord of the world? Now the ayat of today, we will go from the tafsir. كَلَّا إِنَّ كِتَابَ الْفُجَّارِ لَفِي سِجِّينٍ. But rather, the book of the Fujjar, the book of deeds that is inscribed, the book of deeds, the register of the Fujjar, those who transgressed, is in Sijjin. So what is Sijjin? There's a famous Arabic dictionary called Al-Qamus, which is like a very huge, in-depth Arabic dictionary. It defines Sijjin to be an eternal prison. So this is one explanation that some of the Mufassirin give, that the book of the Fujjar is in an eternal prison. Another explanation, according to some of the Mufassirin, Sijjin is a place in Jahannam, wherein the people of Jahannam, or the people who are going to go to Jahannam, their souls will be kept there and tortured. And there will be, so to speak, a library of all the records of sins that these people used to do. It will all be, there will be a record kept of all the people who are, that their sentence is to live in Sijjin, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put the record there. This is another tafsir. Another tafsir is that Sijjin is a place not in Jahannam, but rather it is in the seventh earth. We know in Islam we believe that there are 7 heavens and 7 earths. One of the tafsirs is that the place Sijjin is in the lowest earth, and there it is kept all the book of deeds of all the people who fit this description is kept down there. Sijjin, according to another tafsir, it is also mentioned that Sijjin is an inferno that exists at the 7th earth, and there resides Iblis and all of his armies. So this is another tafsir. There are multiple tafsirs regarding to this. There are some narrations that say that Sijjin is from the Prophet ﷺ, narrated by Bara ibn Azib radiallahu anhu, says that that Sijjin is in the lowest level of the earth, and Illiyin, which we will discuss with regards to the people of Jannah, is in the highest level of the heavens. A question may arise that where is Jannah and where is Jahannam? Before we go into this, as this is part of this tafsir, it is important for us to understand the actual locations of both Jannah and Jahannam are known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if people give an explanation to it and it turns out to be wrong, they are humans. The true location of these belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jannah and Jahannam exist outside our comprehension. There are things that we are limited to, our comprehension is limited to that which we have experienced. Right? That which we have seen, that which we have experienced, that which we are studied, our comprehension is limited to that. Jannah is a place that exists wherein time doesn't work the way it does here. A person will never age. A person will remain youthful. There is no negative thoughts there whatsoever. It is pure bliss. We cannot comprehend that. The more a person lives in Jannah, exponentially the enjoyment of things gets better. We know the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, a Bedouin came to him and asked that, "Oh Rasulullah, are there fruits in Jannah?" And Rasulullah ﷺ began to explain the trees and the fruits. And he said that a fruit, you will take a bite, and in one bite, 72 different flavors will come. We cannot comprehend that. We know that the women of Jannah, they are such that if they were to speak to the dead would come back to life. And if they were to put their finger in front of the sun would lose its luminescence out of shyness and shame. And if her spit were to reach the ocean would become sweet. This is stuff beyond our comprehension. Similarly to Jahannam. Jahannam is such a place, death does not exist there. It is a beast. It is a beast that will devour everything. Right? And if it was let loose, it would devour everything. And the sight of Jahannam will be enough to knock unconscious all of humanity. And the sound of Jahannam is the same thing. So we do not understand, we cannot comprehend the exact places of Jannah and Jahannam. We will mention a few things here, but it's important for us to understand that. Because sometimes some brothers and sisters get confused that, oh, Jannah will be like this and Jahannam will be like that. Jannah and Jahannam are things we cannot imagine. We've been given similitudes to get an understanding that it will be something like this, but the reality of it, we don't know. We do not know the reality of it. As the Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, it is a place no eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard, no mind has ever thought of. Which means that no matter what you think Jannah will be like, it's not that. It's better. Continuing. There are narrations that say that Jannah is in the 7th heaven and Jahannam is in the 7th earth. And that when the day of judgment will come close, Jahannam will erupt, and as it erupts, the sea and the oceans will catch fire, and all of this will come into Jahannam, and Jahannam will swallow all of this. The strength of this narration is debatable, so we do not use this as a proof for a yes or no. It is important for us to understand there are narrations that have come. Either they may be a hadith that do not have a strong sanad, a strong chain of narrators, or it could be that they are narrations from the people of the book, from the Jews and the Christians. The policy of Islam with regards to such narrations from the people of the book is we do not accept it, we do not deny it. If it conforms to that which is concrete from Islamic knowledge, we accept it because it falls in line. If it goes against, we obviously deny it. And if it is just extra information that is neither confirmed nor denied by the religion of Islam and by the Quran and Sunnah, we do not say yes or no to it. It is a fact that is there, and that is what we leave it at. Similarly, when it comes to weak narrations, I know there's this thing that, oh, we cannot take the hadith is da'if, the hadith is da'if. When it comes to da'if, a hadith, we will not use that at all when it comes to our aqidah, and we will rarely use it when it comes to our fiqh. However, when it comes to aspects of fada'il, of virtues, aspects of history, then such narrations can be taken. We do not confirm it 100%, but we will mention it as there is a possibility that is okay, and it could be from the Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even though it may have a weak sanad. This is important for us to understand. Continuing on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says after Kalla inna kitab al-fujjar lafi sijjin wa ma adraka ma sijjin kitabun marqum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then describes what is he talking about here with regards to the book of the transgressors will be in sijjin. He says, what will tell you about this? Again, wa ma adraka ma sijjin. That usage of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what will tell you about this? This ayah is once again brought here, as we talked about in Surah Al-Infitar, and it comes in a few other surahs. Kitabun marqum. Marqum is, as many of the Mufassirin translated to be makhtum, which is sealed, inscribed. The book of the people of the who will be put in Sijjin, and this book that is in Sijjin is inscribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as commanded by the angels. It is sealed. Nothing can be removed from it except by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is important to understand. We have books of deeds. As we've discussed in Surah Al-Infitar, there are two angels, they're writing down the book of deeds. And as also we discussed there, the book of deeds, what is written there, what isn't written there, is decided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Should Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive somebody? Maybe somebody, he did sins throughout his whole life. And towards the end of his life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this man hidayah, and he does tawbah. And he does a sincere tawbah from the bottom of his heart, and he cries out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, begging him for forgiveness. This forgiveness would make it such that all those sins that he has done, even if it were to be 100 years of sins, it will all be erased. And in many hadith, depending on the way he does tawbah, it will be replaced with good deeds. And so this is what this is talking about with regards to the book of deeds is being sealed, right? That cannot be changed by other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. On that day, on the day when everybody will be raised in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, الَّذِينَ يُكَذِّبُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. Wail is for those people on that day who used to belie the religion. Those, الَّذِينَ يُكَذِّبُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. Those, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes what does he mean by mukaththibin? Those who used to deny the day of judgment. Once again, wail, we talked about this yesterday, it can mean destruction. It also can refer to a valley in Jahannam, and we discussed this yesterday. الَّذِينَ يُكَذِّبُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. Those who would deny the day of judgment. وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes further to explain that the only people who deny the day of judgment are whom? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, are the only people who denied on that day are the sinful transgressors. إِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِ آيَاتُنَا قَالَ أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And then explains who are these type of people. Those people who, when the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are revealed to them, they say, these are just stories of the past. أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. This is a direct message to those leaders of Quraysh. Obviously in general to everybody, but particularly to those leaders of Quraysh who came up with a plan of how they could deny the word of the Habib sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We know that everybody considered the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam to be the most trustworthy and the most truthful. We also know that majority of the people who would listen to the Quran attentively while keeping an open mind and an open heart, they would accept Islam because the ayat of the Quran are very clear. So the kuffar of Quraysh, the leaders, they began to panic and they began to think that, okay, how can we stop this? Because anybody who listens to him, they automatically started going to and accepting his religion. And we've tried saying that he's not truthful or he's insane, but that is obviously not working. What can we do? So they came up with plans. And among those plans was to say that all of these stories you are mentioning, these are stories of the past. These aren't actually really stories. This isn't factual history. These are just folk tales that we made up. This isn't real. These are just stories that we used to tell each other, like bedtime stories, folk tales, legends, like mythology. These aren't reality. These aren't actually true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining that these type of people, they are the mukaththibin, and to them is wail. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, Kalla, bal rana ala qulubihim ma kanu yaksibun. Nay, denying what they used to say to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about how this is just stories of the past. Nay, but rather Ran has come upon their hearts because of that which they used to do. What is Ran? Ran comes from the Arabic word rain, which can mean rust, or it can mean dust, or it can mean filth. Which means the Mufassirin explain that the people of Quraysh and the sinners and those who have done this sin and those who fall into this category, they have, because of the sins they've done, because of what they have done, because of what they have said, because of the life they've lived, their hearts have become rusted and have become filthy and have become full of darkness. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that explains when a person does a sin, a black dot comes on his heart. And I'm sure all of us have heard this. When a person does a sin, a black dot comes on his heart. If he is to make tawbah, if he is to make istighfar, then this black dot is washed away. And if he is to not do tawbah and continues to live his life, then his heart will continue to get a black dot and a black dot until his heart becomes so black that it is unable to turn towards good. And then in one of the narrations, Rasulullah ﷺ referenced this ayah, which regards to this is the explanation. The Mufassirin explain why is the word rana used. It has three meanings: dust, rust, and filth. They explain that when rust comes onto a metal for a long period of time, or iron for a long period of time, it eventually corrodes it to a point where it turns to dust and it just disappears and becomes dirty and filthy. This is how the heart will be. Sins come onto the heart until the fitra of the human being and the ability to follow the deen or follow anything that is right dies away. There is another narration of the Prophet ﷺ wherein he says, words to the effect, a person does a sin, a black dot comes on his heart. If a person does a good deed, a white dot comes on his heart. If he continues to do sins and continues to put black dots on his heart, there will come a time where his heart becomes so black, it will no longer care about what is right and what is wrong. It will only fulfill his desires. And then the Muhaddithin explain, which means that it's not that this person will not do good deeds, but rather it is that this person will only do good deeds if his nafs desires it. And he will only do bad deeds if his nafs desires it, which means he becomes a slave to his nafs. This is something that the non-believers fall into, but it is important to understand that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us, it is a disease that the Muslim can fall into. There is, the definition of ikhlas is very scary. If a person does not do a deed solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that deed is being done for the pleasure of his nafs. And any deed that is done for the pleasure of the nafs will put a person into the fire of Jahannam. And the ulama explain what is the dalil for this, because this is the explanation given for ikhlas. And everything in our religion is based on the Quran and Sunnah. So what is the proof behind this? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the person who gave his life for the sake of Allah, the person who spent his life studying and teaching the deen of Allah, and the person who spent his wealth in the path of Allah, all three of these people, they used every faculty and did some of the greatest good deeds, but they will all be put into the fire of Jahannam, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell them that you did not do this good deed for me, but rather you did it for some, for the fulfillment of your nafs, either to be called brave, or to be called knowledgeable, or to be called generous. And as such, all of this has been done. Your reward has been given to you. You have nothing upon me, and you will go to the fire of Jahannam. This hadith, the ulama explain, is the dalil to show that deeds that are not done for the sake of Allah are deeds that are done for the sake of the nafs, and that will lead a person to the fire of Jahannam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us. It is important for all of us to check our hearts and to check our intentions. This is a condition that is a warning to many of the kuffar, obviously, and is predominantly aimed at the kuffar. However, it is not saying that the Muslims cannot fall into such a category. It is very possible that a person does enough sins that his heart becomes black enough that he no longer, does good deeds for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like we said yesterday, there are some sins that a person knows. Zina, alcohol, not praying salah, zakah, all of these things. We know that these are sins. Everybody knows it. Everybody's aware of it. Everybody feels bad about it. But there are such sins that a person doesn't even realize. And we talked about Mutaffifeen. Tafseer is one of them. Backbiting is one of them, and here is another one. And that is that a person does a good deed, but his niyyah is not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all our weaknesses. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to see the truth as the truth and give us the ability to follow it, and let us see falsehood as falsehood and give us the ability to stay away from it. Inshallah, we can take questions, and then we will do the dua. While the brothers and sisters are while if any of the brothers and sisters have questions, you can post it. This Jum'ah, inshallah, like every Jum'ah, alhamdulillah, it happens in the masjid. Sign up is necessary, and the sign up form is sent out both through the email letter as well as the WhatsApp message. If you do not have either of those, please sign up for that. You can contact myself or any of the board members. We will give you the information. Please sign up. Mask and your own mask and your own prayer rug is necessary, and try to space it out. Don't everybody jump for the first one, because it's becoming very packed, and the capacity is we have a limited capacity because we're trying to follow the guidelines. So if some of the brothers can, please sign up for the second one. There's 2 Jum'ahs. One happens at 1:20 and then 1:45. These are the 2 Jum'ahs. As announced last Jum'ah, the brothers who are coming with their family, for example, if a father and their son are coming from the same house, they will be allowed to stay together, but everybody else will keep 6 feet distance. Along with this, there are many brothers and sisters in the community who are suffering. Some of them have lost their jobs. Some of them, their family members are ill. Their parents are ill back home. They cannot go visit them. Please remember them in your du'as. I don't see any questions, so inshallah we will begin the dua. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك ربنا وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم اهدنا واهد بنا واجعلنا سببا لمن اهتدى واهدنا سوى الجنة جميعهما. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في ديننا ودنيانا وأهلنا ومالنا. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the good of this life and the good of the next, and to save us from the punishment of the fire. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us and our families and our generations until the end of time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all the Muslims who have passed away before us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove the difficulties that the Ummah is facing. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove all the worries and concerns and to fulfill all the needs of the Muslim brothers and sisters around the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us all to live lives that He's pleased with, to help us to live lives that are aimed at pleasing Him and do good deeds that have true ikhlas, and to die in conditions that He's pleased with, and to gather us all into Jannat al-Firdaus with khair and afiyah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.